Okay, we continue the halachot of Rosh HaShana from the Tur and shulchan-aruch in Siman Tafkuf Behed, which is chapter 588 in Orach Haim. We previously reviewed the halacha that says that the minimal requirement for tki'ot on Rosh Hashanah, which usually we don't have a problem with that in the synagogue, but if someone goes around to blow shofar for people who are at home or sick, or etc., he can't do like 100 sounds everywhere. What is the minimal requirement? He says, Shama tesha tekiot mitisha bnei adam. The minimum is 9 sounds, which we call today 10. It's basically it's the shulchan-aruch calls it 9. We call it 10. It's tashrat tashat tarat. Tekiah shvarim tu'at tekiah. Tekiah shvarim tekiah. Tekiah tu'at tekiah. He calls it 9 because he considers the shvarim tu'ah. When we do the tu and the long, this is one voice. Later on, this is another, even mentioned in the shulchan-aruch. Some people came up with this problem of, remember that we discussed what is the right sound for the shvarim or the tu'ah? Is it three short voices, or a ululation, a long wavering voice? So we do both. We do shvarim and tu'ah. But later on, some people came up with the question: is wait, should they be together or separate? Like when you do tu, so those two voices be together, or should they be separated? And they said, we don't know. Maybe they should be together. Maybe they should be separated. So those who are really strict make sure that the one set is done when the shvarim and tu'ah are done in one breath, and one set is done with a separation between them. But these are all, of course, stringencies that stem from the OCD mentality. Technically, if we would have blown only tki'ah shvarim tki'ah one time, that would be okay according to the Torah. Since both voices are contained in the definition of Torah, whether you do A or B, it will be okay. But still, the minimum according to shulchan-aruch is the full set of. So let me explain. So tashrat tashat tarat is what we do. How long each one should be was not defined anymore. I mean, the definition was that the tki'ah should be as long as the 3 small ones. So if you do short small ones, and each one of the small 3 should be as 3 of the 9. So if you do 9, then the 3 could be that's the same length, and then the tki'ah could be enough. But with time, again, everybody's concerned maybe it's not enough, so they're longer and longer. Let's put it this way: if you entered the synagogue on Rosh Hashanah just for one set of tkiot, and you heard what you've heard, you're good, you're covered. There's a long discussion here in the Bet Yosef, but I'm not going to go into it. There are a lot of details that anyway we're not. They're not applicable today because we already added so many layers to the way we blow the shofar in the synagogue. We do 101 voices. So, but in the tki'ot that shulchan-aruch refers to is before the Amidah and during the Amidah. That's it. All the rest are additional. Here's another interesting comment. We mentioned previously the concept of Trei Kalel HaMishtamei, that if 2 sounds are heard at the same time, you cannot hear any one of them distinctly. That only refers to 2 shofarot, which are blowing at the same time. So in the case of that I mentioned of the fan blade that went out of place and hit the frame, and the rabbi in my yeshiva told the tokea not to blow the shofar until the sound stopped. And I told you, first of all, he could have turned off the fan, because to rely on the halacha of the Sephardim that you could lose electricity on Yom Tov. Second, he could have told people, pay attention to the shofar, and this is the shofar, this is the fan. As a matter of fact, it is clearly legislated in halacha. It says this: Kadvu hagaot asheri, im echad tokea b'shofar, v'echad tokea b'chatzotzerot yachad, yatsa b'tki'at shofar. What happens if one person blows the shofar and another one blows the trumpet at the same time. Would you fulfill your obligation or not? We would have thought that the answer would be negative. But the Bet Yosef quotes here, Rabbi Asher, Yatsa bitki'at shofar, ditre kale bitre gavre mishtamai. It says because you could hear two sounds from two people. V'tema beferik rov bedin mashma ditre kale mitre gavre la mishtamai. Now he raises the question. Remember that he brings Talmudic sources. He brings from a discussion in Masechet Masechet Rosh HaShana that you cannot hear, you cannot distinguish between two voices. So he answers, "Haynu ta'amad yatsa yedek shemi'at shofar af al pi sheshomim imo kol chatzotzrot." How can you fulfill your obligation of shofar even though you heard trumpets along with it? Mishum de kevan de haviv yaif da'ate, because this is the mitzvah, so you pay close attention to it and you're able to distinguish the sound. So this should apply to the case of the fan or any other noise, children crying, people talking, whatever it is. You know the shofar is now being blown. You pay attention to it. Why? But I'm sure some people would ask, who would think of blowing the trumpet, right, on Rosh Hashanah, right, alongside the Chatzot? So first of all, we had this case in the synagogue. Someone came to me and said on Yom Kippur, I can blow the shofar. I used to be a trumpeter, so I could blow the shofar, and I let him blow the shofar. Turns out the trumpet and shofar are not exactly the same. He wasn't that good. But in Masechet Rosh Hashanah, it is actually mentioned that in the time of the temple, the shofar used to be accompanied with trumpets. That was part of the ritual. We don't do it today. Right. Praise Hashem with trumpets and shofar. Mm-hmm. But just to clarify, the trumpets of the past did not have valves or tubes to give you different. There was just a plain sound, just like the shofar, only it was metallic. And that's how he rules also in the shulchan-aruch, that if you heard the nine different voices of shofar from 9 different people, even spread all throughout the day, you have fulfilled your obligation. But of course, ideally, you want to hear them in the synagogue. Next halacha in the tool, we start talking about that, is Shabbat. Shabbat lav zman teki'ahu. On Shabbat, we don't blow the shofar. Ditnan, Yom Tov shel Rosh Hashanah shechal yot b'Shabbat, b'mikdash hayu tok'in, aval lo b'medina. If the first day of Rosh Hashanah fell on Shabbat, they would blow the shofar at the temple, but not at the rest of the country. שאין הכל בקהיל בתקיעת שופר וחיישינן שמי תננו בידו ללכת אל בקהיל ללמדו ויעבירנו 400 ברשות הרבים. Why did they say that you could not blow shofar in the rest of the country? Because not everybody knows how to blow shofar, and we are afraid that you will take the shofar and you will carry it through the public property to go to an expert to teach you how to blow the shofar. This is a very, very frail argument, or as they say in Yiddish, shvach. It's really shvach. It's to have in mind that shofar actually is the one thing that everybody thinks they know how to blow, and everybody practices in the synagogue. I haven't seen someone taking the shofar and going to the master blaster, to teach me how to blow the shofar, right? And
especially on that day,
especially on Rosh Hashanah, if you want to practice, you would do it beforehand. If there's a shofar that there's someone who knows how to blow it, and he blows for everyone else, why would you ask? Why would you be concerned about that? So the answer is really that this was meant as a device to bring everybody to Yerushalayim to hear shofar there. The rabbis couldn't say we do not allow you to blow shofar anywhere else, because that would be overriding a biblical commandment.
But it's only on Shabbat. So
right.
Because if it were every Rosh Hashanah, okay, makes sense. This is what they're putting.
Yeah, so every Rosh Hashanah, right. So to go to that distance and say we force you to come every Rosh Hashanah to the temple is too much. But Shabbat is a good opportunity. It's like we have, and also to establish the centrality of Jerusalem. But it's a good. But instead of overriding the commandment completely and saying you cannot blow shofar anywhere else, they just said it in a way of a side problem, which is the carrying shofar on Shabbat. And I mentioned on Shabbat that we have evidence from up to the 7th, 8th century that people found a way to circumvent this decree by chaining the shofar to the teva. So, okay, were you concerned about the shofar being carried out? Here, we chained it to the shofar. And also, the decree should also have been limited only to places where you have no eruv. And now but still nobody dared change the halakha except for one scholar, Rabbi Yitzhak Alfasi. Says, "Verif hayat tokea bevet dino." In the 10th century, Rabbi Yitzhak Alfasi would blow shofar on Shabbat. V'samach lo al hadetnan, and he relied on this Mishnah. משחרב בית המקדש התקין רבן יוחנן בן זכאי שיהיו תוקעים בכל מקום שיש בו בית דין ולפניהם. The Mishnah says that after the destruction of the temple, Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai, who was, we could say, a realistic, very pragmatic, he realized that Beit HaMikdash is not going to be rebuilt soon. Everybody thought that it's a matter of maybe a couple of years, maybe at most 70 years, as it was with the first temple. The first temple was destroyed by the Babylonians 586, 516, 70 years later was already inaugurated. So they said, okay, the Romans will go, a new king will come. Rabbi Haim Ovadia says, don't be so sure. Right now, we have to assume that there's no temple. And we have to live with the new reality. And he was right. There were 2 attempts to build the Beit HaMikdash later on, as late as in the 4th century, by Julian the Apostate, the Roman emperor who went against Christianity. And he gave Jews in Israel permission to rebuild Beit HaMikdash, but it didn't work out. And as we know today, it never worked out. So Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai had the vision to say, don't live with this false hope that it's going to be built tomorrow. We will pray for it, we will wait for it, but right now let's function with what we have. And he said, Beit HaMikdash used to be the center, the spiritual center. Now the center has moved to Yavne. And not only in Yavne, but everywhere, Bechol Makom Sheish Bo Bedin, wherever the Bedin is sitting, that's where you blow the shofar on Shabbat. What he did was, not only he creates a new reality, he also changes the center of power from the temple, from something which is inherited through the Kohanim, the priestly lineage, to the scholars. So he took advantage of the situation to undermine the Kohanim, which were already corrupt towards the end of the period of the temple. So he took advantage of it and unseated them by saying, now the merit goes to those who study Torah, to the scholars. And of course, he drew a lot of fire because of that from the Kohanim, from those noble families of the Beit HaMikdash. But anyway, this was the rule of Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai. Now, the dispute was when he said, you blow the shofar wherever the Beit Din is located, did he refer to the great Beit Din, to the great assembly of 71 Hachamim, or 23, or even a smaller Beit Din? So he says, ורוצה לפרש כל בית דין ואפילו של 3. According to the Rif, Rabbi Yitzhak Alfasi, any Beit Din, even if it's a Beit Din of 3 people, 3 rabbis, you blow the shofar there on Shabbat. ולא נהגו כן, שכל המפרשים פרשו בית דין של 23 שהם סנהדרין קטנה, but this is not the widespread minhag. All other commentators said you have to have at least 23 judges, which is Sanhedrin Qtana, which also has the authority to deal with capital punishment. Now, the Bet Yosef, Rabbi Yosef Karo, comments on that. And we're going through the commentary to also see his methodology. So, regarding the comment, the statement that we are concerned about carrying the shofar through the public property, he quotes Rabbeinu Nisim of Chelona, who asks, ואם תאמר, מה ישנה הנה דגזרינן ומה ישנה מילה דשריה בשבת ולה גזרינן שמה יעביר תינוק או יזמל 4 אמות ברשות הרבים? Rabbeinu Nisim raises this question. Why are you only concerned about shofar? There are other mitzvot that you do on Shabbat, for example, Brit Milah. Why are you not concerned about Brit Milah on Shabbat, that people will carry the baby from one place to another, or that they will carry the knife from one place to another? His answer is, יש לומר, דהני שני, לפי שהכל טרודים בהם, ולמה דקר אחד לחברי, מה שאין כן במילה. He says, it's different. With Brit Milah, there's one person in charge. The the mohel, and he knows how to do it, and he will not make the mistake. But with the shofar, everybody is busy with blowing the shofar. So obviously, this refers to a different reality. Now that we read that, and in my article about the 101 Tekiyot, I mentioned that the Gaonim says that at the end of the tefillah, you couldn't hear anything because everybody would blow the shofar. Apparently, in the past, everybody would bring his shofar to the Bet Knesset. There would be hundreds of shofar, and everybody wants to blow his own shofar. So to toot your horn, it's like it's a real thing. That's what they used to do. So the concern was that after the official ritual in the synagogue, people would do it on their own, and akol tudim. It's interesting to note also that the question of the Ran, that was about 800 years ago, he raised this question: Why do you allow milah on Shabbat? Now has become a reality. There are rabbis who would put restrictions on families when there's a brit milah on Shabbat. Let me explain. In some communities, when the rabbi knows that some of the relatives or the baby himself will be brought to the synagogue on Shabbat, there were cases where the rabbis were trying to postpone the brit milah to Sunday. Such a question was presented to Rabbi Ovadia Yosef by a rabbi from South America, who said, "I know that the family is not Shomer Shabbat. The baby will be brought to the synagogue on Shabbat in a car. Should I find a way to postpone the Brit Milah to Sunday?" Rabbi Ovadia Yosef said, "No way. The mitzvah of the Brit Milah is on Shabbat. The mohel is Shomer Shabbat. So you don't care about the rest of the family or how the baby is brought to the synagogue." However, I know that in some synagogues in Brooklyn, I know specifically of Sha'arei Tzion in Brooklyn, that when there's a Brit Milah on Shabbat, the rabbis have decided that if people want to do it in the synagogue, if they want to do it at home, they don't interfere. But if they want to do it in the synagogue, they demand that the mother and the baby will sleep in the synagogue. There's a room for so to make sure that they don't carry or I don't know what. And anyway,
they won't respect the
but it's a trivial thing that they don't respect the Eruv in Brooklyn. And I know from at least one mother who told me that she had a Brit Milah planned for Shabbat, and she slept in the synagogue with the baby and the nanny, but at a little after midnight, she fled back home because it was so creepy, sleeping in an empty synagogue. So this is unfair, really. That we'll go with what the halacha says, go with what Haim Ovadia Yosef said, but that's how halacha is built. Every decade or generation or so, someone comes up with a new prohibition, with a new concern. Now, regarding the halacha, the custom of the rif, the Beit Yosef brings the same thing. And he says, "Velo na'agu talmidav harav la'asot ken." Even the disciples of the Rif, of Rabbi Yitzhak Alfasi, were afraid to follow in his footsteps. V'Aran katav, and so the Rabbi Nusim brings the same argument that on Shabbat, the Rif would blow the shofar because he had the bedin, and it concludes with that. Umiu mashma den hidro ba'inan din shel 23 o samuch bedin kavua miha ba'inan. So Rabbi Yosef Karo concludes that you don't need a bedin of 23 people, and you don't need a bedin that has a semicha, ordination that goes all the way back to the process that started in Eretz Israel, but you need a bedin kavua, a permanent bedin that takes care of that city. אבל הרמב"ם כתב, בזמן הזה שחרב הבית, בכל מקום שיש בו דין קבוע, ויש שסמוך בארץ ישראל, תוקעים בו בשבת. According to Maimonides, the bedin has to be not only the permanent bedin that has a seat in that city, but also that it has the semicha from the traditional semicha of Eretz Israel. If you recall, we spoke about the semicha dispute and how they tried to renew it. So that is the final line. Even though Rabbi Yosef Karo, in his commentary, Bet Yosef suggests that you could blow the shofar anywhere where there is a bedin, in his shulchan-aruch he rules Yom Tov shel Rosh HaShana shechal yot b'Shabbat en tok'in b'shofar. So you do not blow the shofar on Shabbat. He doesn't make any allowances, and the Rama Rabbi Moshe Yisraelis adds, "Ve'asur letaltelo im lo letzorech gufo mkumo," and you cannot move even the shofar unless you need a spot. You need to put something here, there, something else where the shofar is. But this is an example of the ambiguity of the Bet Yosef. Sometimes we said that Rabbi Yosef Karo leaves certain halachot open-ended. So between his commentary, Bet Yosef, and his final ruling in the shulchan-aruch, he gives two options. In his commentary, he says, wherever you have a bedin that is a permanent bedin, you could blow shofar on Shabbat. In his shulchan-aruch, he says, we don't blow shofar on Shabbat. So if someone, let's say, would take the initiative and in his bedin would blow shofar on Shabbat, he would be in accordance with the ruling of Rabbi Yosef Karo in his Bet Yosef.